Hello, my name is Naman Sharma. I'm a technology solutions architect at Worldwide Technology, focusing on data center networking. Today, I'm going to talk about layer 3 connectivity from the ACI fabric to the external world. This layer 3 connectivity could be to your existing data center environment via a layer 3 handoff or a layer 3 connectivity to your WAN side. We are using the latest version of ACI, which is 1.2. First, to configure the layer 3 connectivity, we have to program the fabric access policies with the right port and the port profile. So we'll go to the fabric and we'll first configure a policy group. Under fabric, we'll go to access policies and then we will expand on the interface policies. We'll right click on policy group and create an access port policy group. We'll give it a name and we will select 1 gig link CDP enabled and select submit. So now we have a new policy group with those properties. Next, we'll go and create an access port selector. We'll go to the profile, expand, select the leaf 102 interface selector. We'll right click on that and select access port selector. We will give it a name we are using 1/16 port and we will assign this port to the policy group which defines what properties this port should inherit. 1 gig CDP enabled. So we'll select this policy group right here and submit. Next, we'll go and create a attachable entity profile. We'll go to global policies. We'll right click on attachable entity profile. Right click on that and create a new one. We'll click next and we will select the policy group which we have just created, which is this one, map to interface 1/16. We'll select the radio button all and select finish. So we have defined a AEP which is mapped to the policy group, and that policy group maps to the interface 1/16. Now we'll go into my tenant to do the layer 3 configuration. I'll go to tenants. My tenant is tenant S2. I will go to networking on the left side and I will drag a layer 3 and connect that to the VRF. This opens my layer 3 routed configuration box. I will define a name for this. Select OSPF as the routing protocol. Keep the area ID 1, everything default here. Next, I will go to the external routed domain and create a new one. Create a layer 3 routed domain. We will give this a name. And then we will select the AAP which we have created and attach that AAP to this domain. And then we'll go and define a VLAN pool. So that way we can tell what in cap this interface should be expecting the traffic to come on. I click on create VLAN pool and I define the VLAN pool. Define a VLAN range in that pool. Click OK. Submit. So what I've done is I have defined a layer 3 domain which is part of the AAP which I had previously created, and I also defined the VLAN range which this domain should have. And I click submit. And we see now this domain is automatically selected. Next, we're going to go and configure node and interface protocol profiles. We'll click on this plus sign and we'll define our node profile. That's the name, and we'll click on the plus sign to tell what node, and node is leaf in this case. So my connection, layer 3 connection to the outside world is on leaf 102. So I will select the leaf 102. I will select the router ID. And I will click OK. So I have defined what leaf will have the external connectivity, what is the router ID. Next, I'm going to go and define OSPF profile for the interface. I'll click plus. I will give it a name for that interface profile for the OSPF. I will keep the authentication type to no. Everything remains default. Now here we are using the same interface to build a layer 3 connectivity, but we'll create a routed sub interface, so that is we can use the same physical interface but have multiple layer 3 connections on the same interface. And to achieve that, we have to have sub interfaces. It's the same way you do it in your traditional Cisco routers. If you plan to use the same interface and have multiple layer 3 connections, because again, keep in mind, in ACI, layer 3 connectivity is per VRF. So for example, if we have 5 tenants, and each one of them have their own VRF, and we want to use the same physical interface, we'll create a routed sub interface, and it will have 5 separate layer 3 connections. So we'll go here and we'll click on routed sub interface because we're using the same physical interface 1/16, and we click on the plus sign. We'll define the path, which is going to be leaf 102 interface 1/16. We'll define the VLAN in cap, which we are expecting the traffic to come. And we will define the IP address of this routed sub interface. We'll change the MTU to 1500 and select OK. So we have defined the profile for the interface. It is a routed sub interface with the IP address of 10.1.3.1/24 and a VLAN encapsulation of 1020. We'll select OK and we'll select OK and come out of this window. So here we have defined the node, the leaf 102, the router ID, and then the OSPF interface profile. Next, we will do click on the next here. Every host information which ACI will will learn from the outside world, it will put that into an external EPG, a separate EPG. So we'll create an external EPG here. We'll click on the plus sign and we will give it a name. And we will define the subnet. Again, we are saying everything which we learn on this interface, put that into my external EPG. So I have this IP address, which means everything which you learn on the interface. These are the external subnets for the external EPG. And I select OK. Select OK again and come out of this window and I press OK. At this point, I have created a layer 3 routed network, external routed network. Now we will attach this layer 3 external routed network to the bridge domain, which is in my case S2BD1. I click on this box or circle and I go to layer 3 configurations. In that, where it says associated layer 3 outs, I'm gonna click on the plus sign and select the one which we just created, update, submit changes. Next, we will go to our application profile and we'll drag this layer 3 circle to the white canvas and drop it. It will ask for our external network and we'll select the one which we just now created and press OK. Let me move this close to the web EPG because we will create a contract. Again, the outside world, if they have to ping the machines, physical or virtual, which are part of the web EPG, you need a contract. Between the EPGs, you always need a contract. In ACI, it's a whitelist model. So let us define a contract. I'm gonna click on this contract, drag this down, and look at the sign of the arrow. The arrow pointing outside from the web EPG means web EPG is providing. The arrow pointing towards the external EPG here, routed external EPG, means it is consuming. So we'll do that, drop it, it opens up a box. Again, it shows who is consuming and who is providing. I will choose my existing contract which I have already created with the name of web connection, and I will choose the subject which basically allows ICMP, Telnet and SSH, and I will say OK and submit. Let me move this slightly here so it's easier for you to follow. And at this point, I have a contract between external EPG and my web EPG, where web EPG is providing and external EPG is consuming. Now let us go and see if we have our layer 3 connectivity and if I'm learning all the routes. So I'm going to log into my router with which we were doing the peering to validate our OSPF neighborship. this is my router, and I will say show IP OSPF neighbor, and I see I have a OSPF neighbor shape. Also, let's take a look at if I'm learning all the routes. So I say show IP route VRF. Again, we are using VRFs because we are using the same interface and sub interfaces, and it's completely multi-tenant from that standpoint. So my tenant is S2 VRFs, and you can see I have learned the OSPF routes right here. So let me go and ping the virtual machine which is part of the web EPG. The IP address of that machine is 10.1.1.2. So I will say ping 10.1.1.2 VRF. I'll keep looping VRF first. And you can see I can ping. And let me show you this virtual machine, which is 10.1.1.2. So if I go to my application profile under the web EPG, operational client endpoints, I see right here. That is the virtual machine which I was talking about, which I can ping from my external router. You can also go to the Fabric tab here in ACI dashboard. Go to the inventory, expand on the pod 1, leaf to node 102, protocol, select OSPF, and this is the OSPF which we have configured right here. You see operation status, it says up. That's the router ID which we have configured. That's the name of the VRF it's mapped to. And if I click here and I say interfaces, those are the interfaces which are part of this OSPF. Again, it's part of the area 1 which we have defined. And these are the routes which I'm learning. So as you can see, now I have a layer 3 connectivity to the outside router, and I can ping from the outside router a virtual machine which is in my web EPG after I define external routed network domain and the connectivity, and also created and attached a contract between the external EPG and web EPG. This completes our demonstration. Thank you so much for watching this video. For more information, please visit www.t.com.